Hello, everyone. Today's training session topic is allocating GL journal lines using the payment allocation form. In this session, you will learn how to use the payment allocation form to allocate GL journal lines with different types of transactions, such as unpaid invoices, unallocated payments, cash journals, and other journal entries. Moving to the next slide, here are the objectives of this training session. By the end of this session, you will be able to understand the purpose and functionality of allocating GL journal lines through the payment allocation form. In the Onfinity system, GL journal lines already exist as completed and reconciled records. These records may be created against a business partner, but are not yet allocated. Therefore, they need to be allocated against invoices, payments, or cash journal lines. Since these GL journal lines are already completed, we use the payment allocation form to allocate them with other transactions, such as invoices, orders, payments, and cash journal lines. Next, you will learn how to identify and navigate the key fields and sections of the payment allocation form. In this session, you will also understand the different sections of the form, the available fields, and the scenarios that can be handled using this form. Another objective is to accurately allocate GL journal lines against invoices and payments. This training focuses on allocating GL lines with transactions such as invoices, payments, and cash journals. You will learn how to perform both full and partial allocations based on business requirements. In some cases, the full amount of other transactions is allocated against the GL journal lines. In other cases, the exact amount of the GL journal line may not match the invoice or payment amount. In such scenarios, partial allocation can be done from invoices, payments, or cash journals against the GL journal lines. However, partial amounts of GL journal lines cannot be allocated. The full amount of the GL journal line must be allocated, while the corresponding invoice, payment, or cash journal amount can be partially allocated. Next, you will learn how to review and validate allocation details before final submission. Before processing the transaction, you can validate the allocation and verify that it has been correctly created in the system. Another objective is to understand how to reverse allocations in case of errors or adjustments. If an incorrect allocation is made, it can be reversed, and the impact of the reversal can be viewed across the related forms. Moving to the prerequisites for this session, the transactions used in this process must already exist in the system. Users should be familiar with how transactions are created in the Onfinity system. To effectively use this form, users should have completed Onfinity 100, SEM 200, and Finance 200 training. These sessions help users understand basic system configurations, transaction creation, and the allocation process. Before using the payment allocation form, certain configurations must be completed. First, the required organizations must be defined in the system. These organizations are where invoices, cash journals, GL journals, and payments are created and allocated. The organization in which the allocation is created must also exist in the system and be selectable on the form. Next, unallocated payments, invoices, cash journals, and GL journal lines must be available in the system. These open records are required to perform allocations. If allocations involve transactions in different currencies, the currency conversion rates must be configured in the system. Based on the selected date, the system automatically picks the applicable conversion rate. Business partners must be properly linked to allow allocations across related business partner transactions. For example, if business partner A is allowed to transact on behalf of business partner B, invoices created for business partner B can be allocated using transactions from business partner A, enabling proper settlement of open balances. Finally, users and roles must be defined, and the required access must be provided to the logged-in user. Access to the payment allocation form must be enabled for the user's role to perform GL line allocations. The payment allocation form is used to link payments with open invoices, orders, or GL journal lines, ensuring proper adjustment and clearing of outstanding balances. In this training session, we will cover how to use the payment allocation form for allocating GL journal lines. The payment allocation form is used to interlink different types of transactions, such as payments, cash journals, invoices, and GL journal lines. Using this form, you can allocate unpaid or unallocated invoices against GL journal lines. You can also allocate unallocated cash journal entries or payments with GL journal lines. This process ensures accurate adjustment of outstanding balances, supports both partial and full allocations, and helps maintain reconciled and accurate financial records. In the Onfinity system, the payment allocation form is used after all required transactions have already been created. Through this form, we balance and allocate these transactions against each other. The following allocation scenarios are supported for GL journals in the Onfinity system. On the payment allocation form, multiple scenarios are available. In this session, we will cover these scenarios step by step. The first scenario is GL journal to invoice allocation. In this scenario, we will demonstrate how to allocate a GL journal transaction against an invoice. Now, let us navigate to the Onfinity system, where I will demonstrate this scenario. This is the Onfinity system login screen. After entering your login credentials, click on the Login button. The system will load the home screen. To allocate a GL journal line with an invoice, we need to open the payment allocation form from the menu. Here, you can see the payment allocation form. This form contains several parameters based on which the data is displayed in the right-hand section. The first parameter is organization. This determines which organization's data you want to view and allocate. Here, I am selecting the Sonic Venture organization. Next is the business partner. Select the business partner whose records you want to allocate. Then, select the currency. All unallocated invoices and records displayed will belong to the selected organization and currency. If you want to allocate records of multiple currencies, you must enable the Multicurrency checkbox. The system will automatically convert the amounts into the selected currency. In this case, we are allocating records in the same currency, INR, so the multi-currency option is kept disabled. Next, we will allocate the GL journal line with an invoice. You can select either the GL journal line or the invoice first. This does not affect the functionality. Here, I am selecting the GL journal line that needs to be allocated against an invoice. The inter-organization allocation option is used when allocations involve transactions from different organizations. Since we are allocating records within the same organization, this option remains disabled. Similarly, the inter-business partner option is used when allocating transactions across different business partners. As we are allocating records for the same business partner, this option is also kept disabled. After setting these parameters, select the allocation organization, which determines the organization under which the allocation record will be created. Once all parameters are selected, click on the search icon. The system will load the eligible records. Now, we will allocate the accounts receivable invoice against the selected GL journal line. You can see that the applied amount for the GL journal line is $4,000, and this value cannot be modified. For the invoice record, the amount can be adjusted. In this example, we are performing a full allocation without applying any discount or write-off. You may notice different accounting dates for the selected records. The system automatically considers the latest accounting date among the selected transactions and applies it to the allocation record. Since the difference amount is 0, the allocation is balanced and ready to be processed. Click on the Process button to complete the allocation. The allocation is successfully created and a document number is generated. This can be verified from the Allocation document screen. Here, we can see the allocation record in completed status. The allocation lines show the invoice schedule against which the allocation has been made. By drilling down into the invoice, we can verify that the payment schedule status is now marked as paid. This confirms that the GL journal line has been successfully allocated against the invoice and the allocation process is complete. The invoice schedule has now been successfully allocated. In the same way, we can also verify the allocation from the GL journal line. Once the allocation is completed, this GL journal line will no longer appear in the payment allocation form. Only unallocated records are displayed in the form. There is no separate checkbox or indicator on the GL journal line itself to show that it has been allocated. To confirm the allocation, we need to verify it through the allocation document. From there, we can see that the GL journal line has been allocated successfully. After allocation, the same GL journal line will not appear again in the payment allocation form under available records. Now, let us move on to the next allocation scenario. Our next scenario is GL journal to cash allocation. In this scenario, we will allocate a GL journal line against cash journal lines. Now, let us navigate to the Onfinity system to demonstrate this scenario. Here, we need to select the GL journal line and the cash journal line. After that, click on the search button. The system will display the eligible records, and we can now allocate the cash journal line against the GL journal line. As you can see, the applied amounts are equal, so the difference is 0, which means the allocation is balanced. To complete the allocation, click on the Process button. The allocation will be created, and we can verify it from the allocation details. Here, you can see the allocation record along with its details. This is the cash journal line used in the allocation. The cash journal line is now fully allocated. Since both the GL journal line and the cash journal line are fully allocated, they will no longer appear in the payment allocation form. This is how you can allocate a GL journal line with cash journal entries. In this scenario, both receipt and payment entries can be used for GL journals and cash journals. Now, let us move to the next scenario, which is the allocation of GL journal records to payment records. In this scenario, we will allocate GL journal lines against payment transactions. Let us navigate to the next screen. Now, we are going to allocate GL journal lines with payment records. For this, select Payment as the transaction type and click on the Search button. The system will load all available payment records, including AP and AR payments. Here, you can also see the available GL journal records. Now, we will proceed with the allocation. I am selecting the GL journal record with an amount of 4,400. This GL journal line needs to be allocated against one of the payment records. Since there is no positive amount available for this transaction, we will use the negative amount to perform the allocation. Here, I am selecting the corresponding payment record and applying an amount of 4,400. As you can see, the difference is 0, which means the allocation is balanced. On one side, we have the AP payment record, and on the other side, we have the payable GL journal line. Since the difference is 0, we can proceed with the allocation by clicking on the Process button. The allocation is successfully completed, and an allocation document number is generated. We can verify this from the allocation document screen. Here, we can see the allocation line where the payment record is allocated against the GL journal line. The reference and allocated amount of 4,400 are displayed. In this allocation, there is no amount split, and no discount or write-off is applied. This is how you can allocate payment records with GL journal lines. Moving to the next scenario, we will cover multi-currency allocations. In this scenario, we will allocate GL journal lines with invoices or cash journals that are maintained in different currencies. Let us navigate to the Onfinity system. First, enable the Multicurrency checkbox. Once this option is enabled, the system displays the conversion date field. This date determines which exchange rate will be used for the allocation. Select the required conversion date, then click on the Search button. The system now loads the available GL journal records, along with invoice records in different currencies. When selecting records for allocation, the accounting date of the selected records must match the conversion date. If the dates do not match, the system displays a message asking you to select records with the same accounting and conversion dates. To proceed, update the conversion date to match the accounting date of the selected record. Once the dates are aligned, the record becomes eligible for allocation, and the difference amount is updated accordingly. Now, select the GL journal line and update the applied amount. If the applied amount is not updated correctly, the difference will not be 0. Next, select the corresponding record in another currency. For multi-currency allocation, ensure that the applied amounts for both records are aligned. You can also enter discount and write-off amounts, if applicable. After entering all details, verify that the difference is 0. Once the allocation is balanced, Click on the Process button. The allocation is successfully created and an allocation document number is generated. This can be verified from the allocation document screen. Here, you can see the allocation record along with the transaction date and accounting date, which are derived from the form. The allocation is created in the selected currency, which in this case is Indian rupee. The discount and write-off amounts are displayed in the summary section. Under the allocation lines, you can see the invoice reference along with the allocated amount. Since this is a partial allocation, the invoice schedule is split accordingly. To verify the invoice details, you can drill down into the invoice record. This invoice is in euro currency. In the payment schedule, you can see that part of the amount is paid. The paid amount in euro is calculated based on the applicable conversion rate. In the base currency, Indian rupee, the equivalent paid amount is also displayed. The remaining amount remains unpaid and is carried forward as a separate payment schedule. This is how multi-currency allocations are performed. The allocation is created in the currency selected on the payment allocation form. Partial allocation. Clarification. GL journal lines cannot be partially allocated. The full amount of the GL journal line must always be selected. However, invoices, cash journals, and payment records can be partially allocated. The remaining balance will remain open and available for allocation against other records. Linked business partner allocation. Next scenario. In the next scenario, we will cover linked business partner allocations. This requires a predefined business partner linkage in the system. Now, let us move to the Onfinity system to demonstrate this scenario. Linked business partner allocation. For linked business partner allocations, first select the primary business partner with whom another business partner is linked. Here, the business partner is already selected. To view and allocate interbusiness partner records, enable the Interbusiness Partner checkbox. Once this option is enabled, the system displays records based on the linkage defined in the Linked Business Partner screen. In this example, Veni Enterprise is linked with Devcast Inc. When Veni Enterprise is selected in the payment allocation form and the Interbusiness Partner option is enabled, the system also displays transactions belonging to Devcast Inc. Let us look at an example. Here, we have a transaction record belonging to Devcast Inc. in the system. This record is currently not visible when the Interbusiness Partner option is disabled. When the Interbusiness Partner checkbox is enabled, the system displays the Devcast Inc. records, making them available for allocation. Now, these records can be selected and allocated along with records of the primary business partner. For example, we can select this record and allocate it against another transaction. Here, we select a receivable record with an amount of 4,400. Since this is a cross-business partner allocation, the applied amount must be entered correctly so that the difference becomes 0, even though the records belong to different business partners. Once the difference is 0, click on the Process button to complete the allocation. The allocation is successfully created and can be verified from the allocation document screen. Here, you can see the allocation line where the Veni Enterprise invoice is allocated against the GL journal record of Devcast Inc. The allocated amount is displayed, and the invoice amount is split accordingly. To verify the impact, open the related invoice schedule. The Devcast Inc. invoice record is partially paid. A new unpaid schedule is created for the remaining balance in the Onfinity system. This demonstrates how you can allocate transactions across different business partners. Such allocations are possible only when the business partner linkage is defined in the Linked Business Partner screen. Once the linkage is configured, the related records become available in the payment allocation form for allocation. Intercompany allocation scenario. Moving to the next business scenario, we have intercompany allocation, which means allocating transactions across different organizations. To allocate records belonging to different organizations, no additional configuration is required in the system. The only requirement is to enable the intercompany allocation checkbox. When this checkbox is enabled, the system displays records from other organizations based on the user's assigned role and access. For example, if only Sonic Venture is selected, the system displays records belonging to Sonic Venture only. However, once the intercompany allocation checkbox is enabled, records from other organizations, such as Sonic Solutions, will also appear. After enabling the intercompany allocation option, click on the Search button. The system will now load records from multiple organizations. As you can see, records from Sonic Solutions are now displayed. Similarly, GL journal lines from other organizations will also appear if they are available. These records can now be selected and used for allocation. Now, let us perform an allocation. In the Onfinity system, journal-to-journal allocation is not supported, which means we cannot allocate two GL journal lines directly. Therefore, we will allocate a GL journal line against invoice records. Here, this GL journal line belongs to Sonic Solutions, while the invoice records belong to Sonic Venture. This means we are allocating records across different organizations, but for the same business partner. Since the GL journal line has a negative amount, the invoice amounts must be positive. As the invoice amount is greater than 10,000, we select two invoice records and update the applied amount so that the difference becomes 0. In this example, we set the applied amount to 4,050, which balances the allocation. Now, the difference is 0, and we are allocating one GL journal line against multiple invoices. Click on the Process button to complete the allocation. The allocation is created successfully, and a document number is generated. We can verify this from the Allocation document screen. Here, you can see the allocation document with one GL journal line allocated against two invoice schedules. The invoice references, schedule numbers, and allocated amounts are clearly displayed. This allocation document is created under the Sonic Venture organization, which is the allocation organization selected in the payment allocation form. If the user later finds that this allocation is incorrect, the allocation document can be voided directly. Once the allocation is voided, the impact of the allocation is reversed, and the related invoice and GL journal records become available again in the payment allocation form for allocation. This completes the intercompany allocation scenario. That concludes all the topics covered in the GL allocation training. Thank you very much.